Welcome to the Way She Leads podcast, where we integrate strategy, intuition, and real life leadership so that you can create impact with more joy and ease without pushing, proving, or burning yourself out. Hi, I'm Megan Akatu, former corporate leader turned transformational coach, and I help women feel fully alive in their purpose in a way that ripples out through every area of their lives. If you've ever felt like there is a better way, you are not wrong and you are not alone. Each episode brings you conversations with experts and real leaders sharing tangible and holistic practices to help you lead your life in a way that actually feels good, not just looks good on paper. Welcome in. Hi, today I'm here with Amy Mosher Berry, and she is the CEO and founder of Visions Internships. She is a bridge builder who builds bridges between the generational gaps and helps build strong talent pipelines with customized internship programs. Amy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Megan. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. And Amy and I were connected through a digital marketing expert. The digital marketing person said, you have to meet Amy. She's just a ball of energy. And then we connected and I was like, she is a ball of energy and I want you on the podcast. So I'm so glad that you're here.
Yay. I know. It's like a sisterly connection. So
can you tell us a little bit more about you and how you became the Amy of today?
The Amy of today. Dun, dun, dun. Sure. So I am born and raised in Central Massachusetts, middle child, which I do mention because there is the sort of justice warrior embedded in the middle child. So I do like to give other middle children a shout out. And I really kind of like did my own thing. I was just in a tree reading a book somewhere. Kudos to my parents. I look back, I don't know how they did what they did. You know, my dad was an iron worker and a Marine. We didn't see him a whole lot growing up. My mom was a stay-at-home mom raising the three kids. And of course, not until I became a mother, I was like, what the heck is she doing all day? Like I had no appreciation for everything it takes. So we'll just say that. I did lose my mom in December of 2023, and we were really the best of friends. So it's been a little bit of a challenge the last couple years, but I think that's all part of my story. And I know she's here with us in spirit. I was one of the first in my family to go to college. So I did environmental studies and Spanish in Vermont. So I had graduated college the year of 9/11 and in many ways it's very different than COVID, but I do have that connection with today's young people where this fallout of a really difficult time as they were graduating. I did do AmeriCorps right after college. So when 9/11 hit, 2/3 of our group just quit. Felt like the world was falling apart. Let me just dig in and work 75 hours a week. I was given this task and I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Let's figure it out as we go. So it was a really cool opportunity very early on in my career to really lead at a higher level than I really knew I was capable of. I got married. I had my kiddo in 2017. I also navigated a divorce. I was separated well before COVID, and then I was navigating being a single mom and divorcing over COVID, which was one of the most difficult things. And I always say, for me, I always remember July of 2021 because it was like what I call my trifecta. So I was not only navigating this really difficult emotional divorce, I was on this Zoom and it was, I was preparing for this big final divorce meeting. My mom was over a couple days before this all went down and she was watching my daughter while I was preparing for this big meeting. And she got a call from her doctor and basically said that the cancer had come back and it's terminal. And I was up to my so stressed out about my own divorce situation. My mom's cancer was now terminal. We didn't know how long we had with her. And then the other piece of the trifecta was that my daughter, I couldn't figure out a pre-K spot because we were moving, we were not moving, but we couldn't find a place to move. So even though I could sell my home in a heartbeat, there was no place to move with my daughter and couldn't sort of solidify the pre-K. So I was like when I think back to that moment, I'm like, how did I get through any one of those? But all of those three things happened simultaneously. And I do look back and say, okay, if I could get through that. And we did. And there's a lot of, even though it was a very stressful time, I feel like I have so many signs from the universe that the universe gave me and my daughter a soft landing. We found a place. We're in a good school system. We're able to come closer to my mom. And so that's just been a good reminder because there has been a lot of stresses, but there's also so much evidence to show that I feel like I'm really supported to do something much bigger than myself. And I think I shared my mom did pass in 2023. I lost my stepdad soon after that. It's been a lot, and I'm happy to say I'm still here to talk about it.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I love the parallels between I graduated in 9/11 And I also
Mm.
understand now these young people coming out of school, and they thought like, okay, I went to college, I did the thing I was supposed to, and then COVID blew everything up. And
Totally.
even your personal lived experience that really helps you do what you do now.
I feel like it's important for us to share these real life struggles that we've
Mhm.
had so that, whoever we're serving can really remember that we are first and foremost, we're a human being first. I think is really valuable, especially for younger people that are trying to get their footing in this very
Right.
dynamic world of work, let's say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And let's go there because what you do as far as helping organizations create custom internship programs, right? Because we
Mhm.
know sometimes that falls through the cracks. Organizations have best of intentions, but there's no one person assigned to it. And yet we know that young people are looking for this
Right.
and they want real world experience and they want to be able to
Yeah.
go into interviews and feel more confident and have something to speak about. And what you're doing feels very unique. So what inspired you to make a business out of doing this?
Like most us crazy entrepreneurs, Megan, I'm
Mm.
sure you can relate, what we're doing now is not necessarily what we saw initially at launch. I was independent consultant in the workforce development space, and I was a professor. So I
Okay.
taught college for 5 years just before COVID hit. And I saw something that I said, you know what, I can probably help here. I saw so
Yeah.
many of my college students graduating with zero to little real world experience, and they
Yes.
really weren't sure where to start, even with that process. They were so focused on the GPA, or maybe they had another job trying to help make ends meet, get through college, that they weren't really thinking about how do I land an internship? Who do I talk to?
Right.
So there was a lot that I felt I could directly help my young people, especially juniors and seniors. That was really my focus when I first started my business. But I did things in the classroom sort of experimentally that really built upon, it sort of seeded the model, I feel like, because I was really
Yeah.
passionate. Not only were my young people wanting to get real world experience, right, and not sure kind of when and
Uh,
how to do that, but I had so many friends and colleagues at the time, like, "Oh, Amy, you work at colleges, can you just can you hook me up with a good
yeah.
intern?" And so I used to actually do that because it was fun for me to do the matchmaking,
Right.
right? I used to joke that I can
Right.
matchmake for everybody else, but then over here, right?
Yes.
It was something that I would just do naturally and it was fun, but now I've learned, oh my gosh, so I did start my business with this idea that we could do more to give credit, like actual academic credit
Yes.
to especially active enrolled college students and help them not only get real world experience themselves, but it would also directly benefit our local entrepreneurs and small businesses and
Yes.
nonprofits. So we would do a lot of like marketing and communication, event support, you name it. We scope out these mini projects and we basically plug the young people in, help our, clients solve
Right.
a problem, and then everybody wins. So that's really the basis of their grade and their experience. So
Yes.
I was able to sort of take that and expand once I left my role. And at one point, I had thought maybe I should pursue a PhD, but really what I love about teaching is bringing together my network and know-how and having that directly benefit my students, because that at the time,
Yeah.
that's what a lot of my colleagues are like, Amy, we would love to have a good intern, but we really need them to be more work ready. So I was really
Right.
focused on the work ready intern, and so much so, Megan, that I actually overlooked the need for the intern ready organization. So that was my
Yes.
huge epiphany toward the end of
Yeah.
2022. I said, oh my gosh, I love serving young people directly, but there's a lot of wonderful colleges and other youth, programming for young professionals. There's just a lot of resources that, you know, young people can get their hands on. But what the gap was that I saw is that these busy organizational leaders were kind of already up to their eyeballs. They love the
Right.
idea of an internship program and working more effectively with interns, but they weren't sure who on staff was going to do that,
Right.
realizing, okay, we actually need more of a structured program and supervising and check-ins and a structure to assist those busy leaders that want this,
Right.
but they don't necessarily have somebody, especially for the smaller to mid-sized organizations. So that was really the big pivot for me.
Or
The Another is I'm hearing from different companies, particularly in specific industries where they want to work more effectively with young people. They may already have either an internship program or they may have an early career initiative where they've brought in
okay.
employees that are younger, but
Yeah.
they're seeing like, oh my gosh, Amy, these young people, they just are coming from a very different place. We think, they want to work, but we're not connecting with them, or they're feeling like maybe they have to know everything. So a lot of the employers are like, why do these young people think they need to know everything already? They can actually come up with great questions and know how to approach supervisors in a timely way with specific relevant questions. And we will help them. We want them to see how we do it here. You can't just
Right.
Google everything or jump on YouTube or AI tool. We're here to help. So there's a lot of sort of potential gaps between the generations, as I'm sure
Yes.
you've heard, there's 5 generations in the
Right.
workplace. There's a lot of places where they're not quite connecting, but where they could better understand and appreciate what the different generations bring to really help everyone. I know that sounds very
Mhm.
kumbaya, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah. What are the specific gaps that the organizations are telling you that younger employees have, or what would they like to see them
Right.
show up with from a skill
Yeah.
set?
It's great. And just think too about how many workplaces are, if not fully remote, they're hybrid. And
Right.
young people kind of came into this sort of, we call them digital natives, right?
Right.
But one of the downsides, and I know you know what I mean by this, is like when these young people were coming into their early adulthood, right? So they may have even, been in high school or even like late middle school, and their COVID hit. And when they came back into the work world, right? Or they came
Mhm.
into the work world really for the first time in like a quote, like real job type
Yeah.
scenario, they were going into a remote environment. And so
Yes.
they never really had that like physical foot in the door, a lot of the in-person, interpersonal communication, like we used to call like the water cooler talk.
Yes.
They're less familiar with that sort of, interacting the way that we grew up, I'll say, in our
Yeah.
first jobs when we think about it. So there's some, kind of gaps around how the different generations communicate. Where are the young people? If they're not in a meeting, they, showing up, whether it could be virtual, right? And if you have a meeting,
Mhm.
that you're either on a meeting or you're not on a meeting or a call,
Right.
but it's like, being reliable, showing up, being visible, even if you are, in a more remote or hybrid role. In terms of like certain gaps, I feel like, there's young people are often really motivated to do purposeful work. And
Yes.
sometimes employers don't quite grasp what they mean by that. So if you think,
Yes.
and most of us at any age, we would prefer to do meaningful rather than menial work. We all know that there are always some menial tasks to be done. So that's a good insight and reminder for young people that may have less experience. But I think for employers to really understand what drives, what motivates young people today, it really is purposeful work. It's making sure that they're part of something that's bigger than themselves. And this is a larger, cultural commentary. I don't need to get too far into the weeds, but fewer young people today are part of like organized religious or spiritual
Right.
groups. So they're getting that deeper purpose and meaning inside of their work. At least that's their
Mm.
preference. They also want to feel like they have like progression opportunity. They want to feel
Yes.
like there's some place for them to grow and learn. They typically enjoy professional development if they can kind of weigh in on where they might want to go, and they really want to get feedback from their supervisors. And I know that people, especially really of all ages, but especially young people, they feel like if they're not getting frequent feedback, they feel like they're kind of out of the loop. And this is especially important when we're talking about more hybrid or virtual roles. They
Right.
really want to have that feedback so they know what's working or what's not working, or if they have an idea, can they try something? They often like to resolve a challenge, address a problem. Like, again, that is very motivating for most young people today. And actually, in so many ways, Megan, it like benefits the employer, but they just may
Right.
not quite understand what the other is looking for. And then, of course, the employer needs what they need. So there needs to
Right.
be that understanding and appreciation for the employer's perspective. And I think sometimes with some young people, employers might get a little frustrated where like, hey, this is the real world here. We've got to
Yeah.
focus on, we've got to get this work done. We're not going to just, acknowledge you all for, just A for effort. We're actually,
Right.
driven by specific results, and we need to get to that result. And then, yeah, we can have a pizza party. Young people put a lot of pressure on themselves as well.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times employers, they want to set up those even casual mentorships that will help young people feel like they're, getting what they need, but they're also able to contribute. And I think, some of those program elements, we'll say, inside of the workplace, they're easier sometimes than even like, let's say, a more formally structured internship program. There are things that employers can do, even if they're not feeling like an internship program may be the right thing. There's a lot that they can do to really bridge those generations in the workplace that will help everybody.
Right. Well, and even when you were talking about the feedback, our generation is more like, hey, no news is good news. Like, if you're not giving me feedback, like, it's fine. Right.
Yeah.
And then the younger generation, it's almost like they want more guardrails of, am I on the right track? What's going well? What's not going well? And that sometimes can feel exhausting to the older generation who has to give it. Right. And so where's the balance?
I know. In a big picture, when we look out at the world, and especially because most young people, they have these so-called smartphones are like almost just like attached to us all the time. So at any moment you can look at the next depressing, overwhelming headline.
Right.
And so young people might legitimately have a question like, where is my future going here right now? Like,
Right.
where are the adults leading the way? Who are my role models? So I do think that's another more big picture. I know that's sort of a nuanced comment.
Yeah.
I think it's really important
It's
because
helpful.
right? Like young people can feel almost like, concerned, rightfully so. Like, who am I looking up to here?
Right.
What is the point of all of this other than like,
Right.
making obviously we all need income, but I don't just want income. I want to make an impact. I'm concerned about the state of the world. I want to see that, I have adults, ideally supervisors at work and beyond that are acknowledging the state of the world. Like we can't just put our head in the sand. There's a lot of
Right.
really big issues to tackle and they want to be part of that solution. So it's not like they're just drifting off and don't care and don't want to work. I think they're often misunderstood, honestly.
Yes.
It's really like they're really concerned about their future and they want to make sure that there's alignment in their values, right? Sometimes they're
Yes.
still learning their own values, but making sure there's
Right.
alignment between the individual and the organization's values. And you will see them step up and engage, and you'll be able to retain them if employers are kind of getting into their world a little bit more.
I'm so glad you said that. And can we even go back to when you said about they're really hard on themselves? That
Yeah.
was not something I knew. And then B, I think the impression is like they do what they need to do and then they're out. Like, so like, are they
I
actually hard on
know.
themselves? Can you tell us more about that?
Right, and of course, it's always dangerous to try to, speak in a
I
huge
know.
blanket statement like this, but many young people, and again, it's always, we live in a soundbite world, so I want to be careful with my words, but, oftentimes many young people are, they are putting a lot of pressure on themselves because they want to have a life that matters. They want to be contributing to the greater good. And I should say, I do typically reference this. It was very powerful. In 2019, there was a national study that had come out, and it was something so compelling to me. It was through Gallup Research and Bates College. They partnered up and they put out these results that said over 80% of today's U.S. college graduates are seeking so-called purposeful work. So they're looking for
Yeah.
work that has that larger impact. Yes, they want income, but they want income with impact, right? They want to make
Yes.
money and, have, meaningful money
Yeah.
making, if you will. So it's an and I know we've talked briefly about this, but I'm
Yes.
going to show the and sign. So this is
Thank you.
often, something that I'm honestly pretty obsessed with this concept, and I think it goes across generations, but it's so important. And I want to be somebody, I want to be an example of a social entrepreneur, an impactor who is showing young people intentionally that we can, in fact, do well for ourselves professionally, financially, and do good work in the world. We can do
Yes.
well and we can do good. And it's not one
Hmm.
or the other. And I think, having young people feel like they have to choose doing well for themselves or doing good work in the world, I think that's very destructive. And unfortunately, that hasn't changed a whole lot since I graduated. And I felt similarly back then. And I felt like, well, I need to ultimately live with myself. I need to be able to look myself in the mirror and, go to sleep at night. So I'm going to choose the path of doing good. I'm going to be
Right.
that social impactor. And I didn't get the memo, Megan, until I was literally in my 30s, that I could actually do well for myself too. I didn't have
Right.
to be a martyr. When I was back in the classroom as a professor, I was like, oh my goodness, 20 plus years later, my own students are feeling similar as I do.
Right.
And,
Right.
I just want to be a sort of I want to send a different message, especially to our young people, and give more examples. That's why I really love, meeting other amazing people like you. Like, we've got to show young people that there are people that are both doing well and doing good, and they can too.
Correct. And even from an organization standpoint, I strongly
Absolutely.
believe that like organizations, right, can fulfill their goals and, can make the thing that they were designed to build or deliver and
Yes.
treat people well
Right.
in the process.
Think
Like it can
about
be
it.
both.
Absolutely. And it needs to be, but that's a great point. It's a way to extend the and is it must be both individuals and organizations. If you think
Yes.
about the best organizations, if they go too far off the rails and somehow, it becomes clear that they don't care sufficiently about people, about
Right.
planet, you're going to lose your customer base, right? It's
Correct.
supply and demand. I mean, especially with these younger audiences, we've been more conscious. I said we loosely. I mean, I'm that
Yeah.
weird age of 47,
Yeah.
you know, that, I came up from a lot of this, when I was 10 years old and the Exxon Valdez spill happened and
Right.
I was plastered to the screen and I was like, oh my gosh, like even in my own family at the time, like it
Right.
didn't appear like other people were caring that these, poor innocent sea
Right.
animals, right? Up at
Right.
the Arctic Circle, I mean, they were drowning in oil. And I was like,
Yeah.
I need to do something personally. I need to do
Yeah.
something. And so I got very interested in environmental education and learning about our world at a relatively young age. And I feel like I just kind of got more evidence to say, I want to be in this space where I'm helping people, I'm helping planet. And that
Yes.
tends to be the kind of young person that I attract in the sort of work that we do. And also the organizations. My ideal organization is that socially and environmentally aware
Yes.
organization that's doing great work in the world, right? And maybe they just have that sort of CSR, that corporate social responsibility statement as to what they do, and it's somewhere on the website. And they're doing good work, but it's not as obvious as it needs to be, right? We want to
Right.
support more of those do good organizations is really a passion of mine.
Yes. The parallels, we just keep finding them. I remember watching a video about recycling at 10 years old in school.
Oh my God, yeah.
And they said something like, and most people won't do it. And I went home that day and I was like, Mom, I'm not going to be the person who's not going to do something. I am going to do something. And can we get recycling bins? And she's like, yeah, I think like the city just mailed something the other day. I think we just need to go pick them up. And we literally
I
started
love that.
recycling that day. And I also give my mom a lot of credit in that moment for listening to me because she could have just been like, you're a 10-year-old. And she did it right away. And then we were the first people on our street to start recycling because I was like, I will
Oh
not
my
be that
goodness,
person
look at
who doesn't
you.
care.
And now it's expanded, right? Town-wide
Yeah.
and region-wide. I love
Yeah.
that so much. Well, kudos to the parents, and let's extend that to the supervisors, people that are really
Right.
hearing young people, right? Because that is so motivating when you feel heard.
Right.
And
Yes.
honestly, I think it's sounds simple, but in our busy world, it's just so easy for young people to feel like they're lost in the shuffle and people aren't listening. So this idea you just kind of had me thinking about when young people are heard, right?
Hmm.
So kudos to your mama, who heard you.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. People from the outside would call me a high achieving woman, but I feel like
Right.
I have encountered one personal struggle after the next.
Yeah.
And I'm not a victim. I don't say that to look for,
Yeah.
any
Right.
sympathy or even empathy, but it's like, okay, I might have even thought I'd be in a little bit of a different spot at this point in my life. But you
Yeah.
know what? Look at me for still being here and enduring all that I have and still helping where I can. And it's like part of my journey, and I will get there as this business continues to build and unfold.
Yeah.
Am I going where I know I'm capable of going? Absolutely. And
Right.
honestly, so we can just
Right.
do our best and forget the rest.
Yeah. Do our best. Find the daily joys, find the daily wins, even just recognizing what you did in the moment and then recognizing that things will always be in motion.
Absolutely.
Because you work with so many different types of
Mhm.
organizations and probably see leadership that's excellent somewhere in the middle. Hey, I wouldn't do it that way. So for the people that are doing it well, what are they doing well?
I love that question. Well, I would say for the organizations that are doing it well, they are really valuing people at all levels of the organization. And that includes being interested in today's early career young professionals. I believe putting people over profit is ultimately the most profitable. They just
Yeah.
don't care how much you know until they know and feel how much you care. So I think it's being caring, being kind. I'm a huge
Right.
fan of being kind. That's one of my absolute top values.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of my company's top values. In fact, our 4 values for Visions Internships stand for the word work. So it's
Yeah.
well-being, opportunity, results, and kindness. And honestly,
Yeah.
The people that are intentional about being kind and they build that foundation of caring and trust, so much can be built on top of that, including some of the best innovative workforce and career development programming. But it's like until you have that foundation, I know it sounds overused, but like, without that foundation, the house falls. So
Right.
I think it's really, especially young people today, I mean, they have reason to be concerned and perhaps cynical and even resigned, but if they see even one supervisor that really cares about them and asks, if your mother was sick last week, checks in
Right.
first about,
Right.
is your mother okay? And then you can get into the doing, remembering that we're human beings before we're human doing.
Yeah.
So really putting the people over profit, and the profit I see always comes. So I hope that answers your question.
It does so beautifully. And it really ties in with what you said about the power of listening. Of like,
Yes.
if the supervisor is just interested and listens, and then I hear this theme, you said interested, I'm going to say curiosity. So if the leader is curious, how do we work with these young people? How do they think? How could we change? Like, I'm open to learning something new. I'm open to changing my approach. I'm curious to see if there's even a field where I can connect employers and young people. It feels like everything goes back to curiosity.
I love that so much. And I really believe it's sort of a mutual value that works really well across generations and even inside and outside the workplace. But rather than being so focused on being interesting, when I coach young people or even executives, it's like, don't worry about being interesting. You're already fascinating.
Yes.
Be interested.
Yes.
You're already interesting. Now let's see what could open up out of being interested. And it's mind-blowing what can happen. When you see a young person in particular who feels heard and respected and you're interested in them and their interests, they will go out of their way like you wouldn't believe to solve some complex, what's important but not urgent, that you could actually get a young person to tackle. It will help them, but it will help you. And they will go above and beyond what you could imagine when they know how much you care about them.
So good. Yes. My teacher actually says that all the time. Just amazing how quickly things can change.
Totally.
When instead of we're trying to be the interesting person and we're just interested.
Yes. In the age of AI, it's like, and what we're talking about is still, if not more relevant than ever, even though, yes, we have new tools, but it's still about being conscious and connecting and caring first, and then rock on with your bad self and all your tools, right? And solutions.
How did you build resilience?
I was involved in so many entrepreneurial support communities. I was meeting people from all over, thought leaders, authors, and one of them, he had a near-death experience himself. I want to say his name is Hal Elrod. And he had this acronym, SAVERS. And if I can recall, this acronym was very useful in helping me through very tough times. I'm not saying you need to do every one of these during the day or early morning, but being conscious of how we start our day. So rather than grabbing the so-called smartphone and consuming before we create, he was like, no, we've got to focus in, here. So the S stands for silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. So savers. And it's not mine, but it was very helpful. So I would pick a couple of those. That was my challenge. I picked two of these, and especially having a little one, being an single mom, like I was like, if I could even like get my own underwear on the right way. It was just so overwhelming. So I was like, okay, just focus on, just be silent for 10 minutes or just speak something that I'm affirming or I'm grateful for. Read 2 sentences in a book that I've been wanting to get to. Like, you don't need to read the whole page. It was like so helpful to just focus in on 1 or 2 things. And that just had given me a framework that I just remember stumbling across that. I'm like, oh, this is like life altering. How we start our day, it makes a huge difference with how our day goes and honestly how our week and our month and our year and our lives. So how we choose to start the day, just that we have a choice. Some people may be familiar with Marie Forleo, and she says, create before you consume. In the morning in particular. So it's like create, step in, breathe, even if it's just a conscious breath before you consume or you your day becomes dominated by your inbox. Put healthy habits and structures in place to support your own success and sanity.
Yes.
And make sure, I had to constantly remind myself that done is better than perfect. Just do my best, forget the rest, taking action and being willing to take imperfect action.
Yes.
I'm a high empath, so I'm very
Yeah.
impacted by the people. I'm always helping as I can, but to overextend myself or to think I'm responsible for something that I'm not, that also freed me up quite a bit, Megan, when I was going through those really
Yeah.
tough times. They're like, well, Amy, like, you have food, you're not being bombed. Like, but I'm like, it almost feels like it's happening like to me.
Right.
And I know it's not
Right.
happening to me, but
Right.
I do have people that they're like, just focus on, your corner, and I'm like, well, for me and other, I think high empaths, that is not simple. And there's something almost
Right.
incomplete about that.
Yep.
And end of the day, I still need to be okay with myself. So it's like, well, but again, it's back to the and sign, right, Megan? It's
Yeah.
this and that.
Right. And very much the human experience. We can feel that pain and also realize that it's not happening to us physically. And only humans can hold two different emotions at the same time. No other animal species can do that.
Do you feel like women can hold more of the multiple emotions? And again, not to make a
I
grand
think
statement,
I
but
think women are better at naming them.
naming them.
I don't know that the emotional experience is different for men. I do think women, it is easier to bring language to
Yeah.
feelings, and women do process more thoughts faster.
Mm.
So I think it is easier than for women to get into like that overthinking of this is happening elsewhere in the world and da 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 da, right? And it's because there's a different, men are more one track, which then helps them stay focused. And that's where that consistency and that determination comes from. And they're on a 24-hour testosterone cycle and we're on a 28-day with multiple hormones. And so we don't process in one track at a time. So our brains are biologically different, but differently.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a couple of quick fire questions?
Sure.
Okay. Amy, what does feminine leadership mean to you?
Well, I would say relationship, communication, and community and communication have that same root, that coming together, that mutual support really defines, in my view,
Yes.
leadership.
What is the Amy secret sauce?
The secret sauce, I love Latin music and I love to
Oh,
dance salsa. Bachata is a real favorite of mine. So definitely dancing, moving my body. I would also say being willing to laugh at myself with all
yes.
of the ups and downs, just not taking myself as seriously.
Last one. What are you reading or listening to right now?
Well, I just finished Lee Sells' book on the first meeting differentiators. Brene Brown's latest book called
Oh,
Strong
Strong
Ground.
Ground. So good. It's so good. Thank
Listeners
you
will
so
like
much
it.
for being here.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
What do you say when your boss takes credit for the work that you did, or a coworker tries to call you out publicly? Download the exact scripts that you can use, the micropower moves of what to say in the moment. Stay in your own power and communicate clearly. The link is in the show notes below. Thank you so much for listening. I so appreciate your time. If you could please review this podcast and leave comments, I would love to hear from you directly. Have a great day. Bye.